The high school track was busy with activity as the runners pushed through the final stretch of their race. While others struggled for breath, Xue Jing crossed the finish line and planted his foot firmly, skidding to a decisive halt. The coach checked the stopwatch and shouted the results across the field. Xue Jing, 2 minutes 36 seconds 79. It was an impressive time, and the reaction from the sidelines was immediate. The group of girls watching couldn't contain their excitement any longer. They erupted into cheers, blushing furiously as they waved at him. Senior Xue Jing, they cried out. Ignoring the commotion, Xue Jing grabbed a water bottle to cool down. He tilted his head back, letting the water spill over his face and neck. The sight of him glistening in the sunlight was too much for the crowd to handle. Senior Xue Jing is so handsome, they swooned, completely captivated. A timid female student stepped out from the cheering crowd, holding out a packet of tissues with trembling hands. Senior, wipe off your sweat, she stammered. Xue Jing blinked, momentarily confused by the sudden offer, but he took it politely. Thanks. As he wiped the sweat from his brow, the girl scurried back to her friends, practically weeping with joy. Senior accepted it, woo-woo. She squealed. Ignoring the fanfare, Xue Jing whispered a command under his breath. Aben. Instantly, a translucent yellow interface flickered into existence before his eyes, invisible to everyone else. Running experience plus 20, running LV3, 258/800. Xue Jing analyzed the numbers. It went up by 20 points, he thought. A bit more than usual. But then, a second notification popped up, glowing brightly. Charm plus 45. Xue Jing's expression went deadpan. He glanced back at the crowd of girls still screaming his name. TSK, he muttered, annoyed. This useless skill sure levels up fast. Suddenly, a sharp whistle cut through the air. His instincts flared. A tennis ball was hurtling toward him at dangerous speed, a green blur against the blue sky. Xue Jing didn't flinch. His red eyes locked onto the trajectory instantly. With a casual raise of his arm, he snatched the ball out of the air. The impact sent a shockwave of dust swirling around his hand, but he held it firm, his expression unchanged. Smoke curled lazily from the tennis ball in Xue Jing's hand, a testament to the force of the throw he had just caught. He looked down at it, confused, while a sharp, menacing grin cut across the face of the thrower in the distance. Bro, what's the situation? Li Gu, Xue Jing's close friend, ran up to him in a panic, glancing nervously at the figure by the fence. Do you know that guy? Li Gu squinted, and then his face went pale with recognition. Isn't that person? It was Pei Youguang, the infamous school tyrant. He stood tall, radiating an intimidating red aura, casually tossing another tennis ball in his hand as he stared them down. Li Gu practically collapsed into the grass, terrified. Why did you butt heads with him? He wailed. Is it because of a woman again? He looked up at Xue Jing, exasperated. Why don't you just accept one of them? Save yourself from drawing aggro from the whole world. Xue Jing remained completely expressionless. No interest. He tossed the smoking ball aside and turned to leave. Li Gu stood there, stunned by his friend's apathy. You have no interest, but the brothers do. He scrambled after Xue Jing, desperate to make him understand the danger. No, that Pei Youguang isn't someone to mess with. What do you plan to do? Xue Jing didn't even look back. He simply waved a hand over his shoulder, continuing his stride toward the gym. Work out. As he walked away, Xue Jing's thoughts turned inward, reflecting on the warnings people often gave him. Working out is useless, you have to practice martial arts to truly be strong. Is that so? Xue Jing mused, looking at his own hand. Perhaps it is useless for others. He clenched his fingers into a tight fist, feeling the power coil within his muscles. But I am different. His confidence wasn't arrogance, it was a fact based on a secret he had held for exactly 1 month. He hadn't been born in this world. He had arrived inexplicably, waking up in a city that was suspiciously similar to Earth but fundamentally different. And he hadn't arrived empty-handed. Accompanying him was a strange, translucent panel that hovered in his vision. It operated on a simple, absolute rule: effort brings rewards. Back in the privacy of his room, simply lifting a dumbbell wasn't just exercise, it was grinding. With every rep, golden numbers would float off his body: strength +1, agility +1, constitution +1. It went beyond simple stats. He found that if he practiced a specific action enough, the system would evolve it. Throwing darts at a board, for instance, wasn't just a game. Once he practiced to a certain degree, his eye would flash with blue energy, locking onto the bullseye with mechanical precision. Conditions met, the system would chime. Activated skill, aiming LV1. Hard work is never wasted, he reminded himself. However, this infinite growth came with a steep price. As Xue Jing stood in his room, his stomach let out a ferocious, demanding roar. Gurgle, he sighed, clutching his belly. Although the daily practice granted him immense benefits, the physical consumption was terrifying. To fuel this system, he needed to eat, a lot. The hunger pangs drove him to the kitchen, but when Xue Jing pulled open the refrigerator door, he was greeted by a depressing sight. The shelves were bare. Empty, he sighed, staring into the cold void. He pulled his shirt off, tossing it aside. Underneath, his body was sculpted like a statue, ripped muscles and defined abs that most people would kill for. However, he thought, I am not working this hard just to show off. Later that night, Xue Jing stepped out into the neon-lit streets. He walked through the bustling crowds of his district, known as the 5th Metropolitan Circle. The city was designed brutally, like a target, it had an inside and an outside. The further out you lived, the more desolate and poor the conditions, the further in you went, the more prosperous and noble life became. As he navigated the gritty streets, the weight of his reality pressed down on him. There is still half a year until graduation, he mused. The deadline was looming. Will I fight to climb into the inner circle, or be poor for a lifetime? It is time to make a choice. With his resolve hardened, he entered a convenience store. He needed fuel for his system. He filled a basket with nutritious food, fresh vegetables, milk, heavy proteins, and marched to the counter, ready to invest in his rise to power. The cashier scanned the items efficiently. 210, thank you for your patronage. Xue Jing froze. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. The ambitious monologue in his head came to a screeching halt as he stared at the price. Moments later, the future ruler of the inner circle was sheepishly picking items out of his basket. I'll pass on this one for now, he muttered, handing back a carton of milk. He grabbed a vegetable next, avoiding the cashier's gaze. And this too. Defeated by the grocery prices, Xue Jing trudged home through the dim, narrow alleyways of the outer circle. He clutched his meager shopping bag, still fuming. 5 eggs actually cost 30, he muttered to the empty street. This world has truly gone mad. Suddenly, a dark blur shot past him with the force of a gale wind. Wah! Xue Jing flinched, instinctively tightening his grip on his groceries as he spun around. He looked down to see a small black creature standing on the pavement. It was a cat, sleek and black, wearing strange golden bands around its ankles and tail. It looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Meow. Xue Jing relaxed, letting out a breath. So it's a stray cat. But the moment he lowered his guard, the cat stiffened and dramatically flopped onto its side. It lay there motionless, limbs splayed out. Xue Jing stared at it, unamused. Are you trying to pull a scam here? He asked, suspecting he was being hustled for food. He crouched down to inspect the scammer, but as he got closer, his expression softened. Up close, the animal was in bad shape. Its fur was matted and scuffed. This cat is covered in injuries, Xue Jing observed quietly. It probably lost a fight. As he pitted the creature, a weary, ghostly voice suddenly drifted into his mind. I didn't expect, the world of stray cats. The cat lay on the ground, its eyes glowing with a strange blue light as the voice continued, sounding utterly defeated. To be so cruel. Xue Jing jerked back as if he'd been electrocuted. Did it just speak? He shouted, staring at the animal in disbelief. The cat flinched, looking just as startled by Xue Jing's reaction. Xue Jing's mind raced. He had a system, sure, but a talking cat was a completely different level of weirdness. What on earth is going on with this cat? His eyes narrowed, focusing on the strange, ornate golden band clamped around the cat's tail. It didn't look like a simple pet collar. Xue Jing reached out, his fingers brushing against the strange golden band wrapped around the cat's tail. What is this now? He murmured, inspecting the intricate metal. The moment he made contact, the band erupted with blinding golden light. His system reactivated, but this time, the message was unlike the usual stat increases. It was urgent and ancient. Detected divine substance, absorbing divinity. Divinity. Xue Jing thought, stunned by the weight of the word. The glowing light seemed to pull his consciousness away from the dirty alleyway, casting his mind back to the fundamental truth of this world. This place was not the Earth he remembered. This planet was named Earth Star, a world known to its inhabitants as Zhu Xia. And its history was defined by a single, impossible event. 287 years ago, God died. It wasn't a metaphor or a myth. On that day, a colossal, glowing entity had materialized over the city, dwarfing the skyscrapers. Its massive form cracked and shattered, raining light down upon the civilization below. On that day, all humans on Earth Star looked to the sky and witnessed the death of a god with their own eyes. The history of this world was written in that single moment of destruction. The gods are dead, the legends whispered. High above the atmosphere, the shattered remains of a celestial body still hung in the sky, a permanent scar on the heavens. With the divine gone, the people of Earth Star were left with a cold, hard truth: humanity stands independent. There were no more prayers to be answered, no more miracles to be granted. Strength was the only thing that mattered now. The memory faded, bringing Xue Jing back to the present. He walked alone down the empty street, the neon signs of the city reflecting off the damp pavement. The mysterious black cat was now tucked securely in his arms, quiet and watchful. He felt the weight of the system in his mind, the endless potential of his stats, the slow but infinite climb of his levels. The world might have lost its deities centuries ago, but Xue Jing saw an opportunity where others saw a void. He smiled, a look of calm, absolute confidence crossing his face as blue energy flickered around him. And I, he told himself, will eventually grind to become a god. Back in the cramped apartment, the grand ambitions of godhood were temporarily put on hold for a more immediate problem: feeding the guest. Xue Jing placed a bowl of dry kibble on the floor. Eat up. The black cat glanced at the bowl, then turned its head away with a distinct air of arrogance. Disdain. Xue Jing's eyebrow twitched. He leaned in, smiling dangerously. Aren't you a stray cat? You won't even eat this? But as he stared at the stubborn creature, the strange, ghostly voice he had heard in the alleyway echoed in his mind again. I didn't expect the world of stray cats to be so cruel. A realization hit him like a lightning bolt. Wait. He looked at the cat with fresh suspicion. Could it be that it's not a cat at all? If this creature had intelligence and standards, then dry kibble wasn't going to cut it. Xue Jing stood up abruptly and marched toward the kitchen. The cat watched him go, a question mark practically floating above its head. In the kitchen, Xue Jing didn't just cook, he grinded. His knife moved in a blur, slicing scallions with the precision of a master swordsman. The sound of rapid chopping filled the small room. Cooking plus 20. He tossed ingredients into the wok, the flames roaring up to meet the pan. His eyes were focused, his movements efficient and practiced. Cooking plus 20. Cooking plus 20. To anyone else, it was just dinner. To Xue Jing, it was another opportunity to level up. The aroma of the freshly cooked meal filled the small apartment, instantly changing the atmosphere. Xue Jing held out the steaming bowl. Green pepper and shredded pork rice bowl, he announced. The effect was magical. The black cat's arrogance evaporated instantly. Its eyes sparkled with stars, hearts floating around its head as it let out a delighted, sugary cry. Meow. It dove into the bowl, devouring the food with a speed that defied its small size. Xue Jing watched from the side, a smug smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I actually guessed right, he thought. As he watched the creature stuff its face with human food, his theory solidified. The reason you can speak human language is because you aren't a cat at all, he reasoned silently, observing its behavior. But a human who turned into a cat. His gaze shifted to the strange golden band still clamped around the animal's tail. As for the reason, it's probably this. Suddenly, ding! A golden notification window popped up, bright against the dim room. Divinity absorption complete. Xue Jing blinked, surprised by the sudden completion. The text shifted, revealing a new, powerful prompt. Twin life, inactive, divine skill. Required divinity for activation 525. Conditions met, activate. Yes, no. Xue Jing stared at the glowing option. A divine skill. The cost was massive, but he had just enough divinity to pay it. Does this even need consideration? He scoffed at the system's politeness. His eyes narrowed with determination, and he gave his mental command without a second of hesitation. Yes. The room was bathed in a brilliant golden light as the system confirmed the process. Skill, twin life activation successful. The light condensed into a small, ethereal flame hovering above Xue Jing's palm. He watched, mesmerized, as it sank into his skin and merged with his very being. What is this thing now? He wondered, feeling a strange new energy pulsing within him. The system panel expanded to reveal the details. Passive effect, possess 2 lives. After death, you may freely choose a resurrection time within 7 days. Cooldown time, 3 months. Xue Jing's jaw nearly hit the floor. 2 lives. He ran the numbers in his head. Resurrect within 7 days of death. Only a 3-month cooldown. Isn't this just resurrection armor? He thought, stunned. In the gaming terms he was used to, this was a god-tier item. A literal extra life. His mind raced. If the passive skill is this powerful, wouldn't the active skill be? He eagerly checked the next tab, expecting another game-breaking ability. Instead, he was met with a gray lock icon. Active skill, locked, divinity required to unlock, 25/500. Xue Jing's excitement hit a wall. Does it also require divinity? Slowly, ominously, his gaze drifted toward the black cat, which was still happily munching on the pork rice bowl. A dark shadow cast over Xue Jing's face as a devious idea took root. So, I just need to keep sucking it out, right? He whispered, looming over the unsuspecting creature like a villain. But as he prepared to treat the cat like a rechargeable battery, he paused. Under the light, the numerous cuts and scuffs on the animal's fur were undeniable. He hesitated. The creature was already battered and weak. Continuing to suck would seem a bit inhumane, he admitted to himself. The villain persona vanished. Xue Jing crouched down, his expression softening into a gentle smile. He reached out and lightly patted the cat's head instead of grabbing its tail. Better think of another way, he decided. The cat, blissfully unaware that it had just narrowly avoided being used as a battery, finished its meal and let out a loud, contented burp. Meow. But Xue Jing's mind was still calculating. But I can't just let it go like this, he thought, eyeing the mysterious golden band on its tail. The source of divinity was too important to ignore. He stood up, grabbing his jacket. Anyway, I'll go out first to look for clues related to divinity, he decided, glancing back at the creature. And see what it does while I'm at it. He stepped out of the apartment, and the heavy metal door slammed shut behind him. Silence returned to the small room. The black cat sat by its empty bowl, staring at the closed door. Slowly, the playful, gluttonous expression vanished. Its eyes narrowed, glowing with an eerie, intelligent emerald light. It wasn't just a stray, it was watching him just as closely as he was watching it. Outside, the night air was thick and cold. Xue Jing walked through the cramped, chaotic streets of the outer ring. The city was a cage of class stratification. For those born in the squalor of the outer ring, entering the prosperous inner ring was a dream that bordered on delusion. The difficulty was ridiculously high. Even if someone managed to qualify, the barrier to entry was financial. They needed to pay an exorbitant fee, a sum large enough to bankrupt even a small wealthy family. Yet, despite the impossible odds, countless people still flocked to the border, desperate for a chance at a better life. Xue Jing walked through the shadows, his face illuminated by the flickering neon signs. He wasn't worried about fees or qualifications. But what most people don't know, he thought, a confident glint in his red eyes, is that there is another method. If one can become a martial artist, all problems will be solved. This simple truth was displayed boldly on a graffiti-covered wall, a large character for martial looming over the gritty alleyway like a commandment. Xue Jing walked past it, hands in his pockets, minding his own business until a rough voice called out from the shadows. Xue Jing, right. He stopped and looked up. A bald man holding a baseball bat blocked his path, flanked by a blonde thug with a metal pipe. The bald man sneered, clearly enjoying his position of power. Is the person our big brother Pei Yoguang has his eyes on someone you can hit on? He shouted, brandishing the bat. You kid are dead meat today. Xue Jing's expression remained flat. He tilted his head slightly, genuinely trying to recall the name. What brother did you say? Before the thug could answer, Xue Jing moved. Whoosh! It happened in a blur. Xue Jing's leg snapped out like a whip, connecting with the blonde thug's chest and launching him straight into the air. The blonde man screamed as he flew backward. The bald leader froze, blinking in confusion. The speed was beyond anything he expected. Did he do something just now? He stammered to his falling comrade. Didn't see clearly. Thwack! Xue Jing's fist connected with the bald man's jaw before he could finish his sentence, sending him spiraling to the ground. Standing over the groaning bodies, Xue Jing picked up a handful of loose stones. His left eye flashed with a mechanical blue light, a crosshair target locking onto his victims. Skill, aiming. He flicked his wrist casually. The stones flew like bullets, striking the thugs with pinpoint accuracy. Ouch! They cried out from the floor. He has a few tricks, a deep voice rumbled from the darkness behind them. But it's not enough. The air suddenly grew heavy. A massive, spectral blue dragon head manifested in the alleyway, roaring with energy. Standing beneath it was Pei Yoguang, his eyes glowing with malice. He lunged forward. Xue Jing didn't panic. He leaned back. He dodged the devastating strike with terrifying agility. He landed lightly a few feet away, dusting himself off. Xue Jing wasn't afraid, he was intrigued. Is that martial arts? He thought, analyzing the blue energy. Pei Youguang straightened up, looking surprised that his attack had missed. Stinking brat is pretty agile. Xue Jing smiled. This was exactly what he was looking for. Pei Youguang actually knows martial arts, he noted with satisfaction. Just as well, saves me the trouble of finding someone to ask. The dust from the failed attack settled in the alleyway. Xue Jing didn't retreat. Instead, he took a step forward, his sneaker crunching decisively against the pavement. The school tyrant was no longer the hunter. Xue Jing walked toward him with a casual, terrifying confidence, hands relaxed but ready. He wasn't looking at Pei Youguang as a threat anymore, he was looking at him as a resource. Tell me everything you know, Xue Jing commanded, his voice calm but laced with an undeniable edge. He stopped just a few feet away, looming over the stunned gangster. Xue Jing raised a hand, his fingers curling as a dark, oppressive aura began to swirl around him, matching the intensity in his glowing red eyes. Otherwise, he warned, a cold smile cutting across his face, I won't show any mercy. The confrontation ended in an instant. With a deafening crash, Pei Youguang's body slammed into the brick wall, cracking the masonry and sending dust billowing into the alleyway. The so-called school tyrant slid to the ground, utterly defeated. He huddled against the debris, clutching his bruised chest, his face pale with terror. All his earlier bravado had vanished, replaced by desperate pleading. Brother. He stammered, looking up at the figure looming over him. Big brother, my own brother. I submit, I really submit. I'll say anything. Xue Jing stood before him, hands in his pockets, looking down with a mix of boredom and disappointment. Thought he was so tough, Xue Jing mused silently. Turns out after waiting all this time, he only has this one move. In Xue Jing's eyes, the fight had been pathetic. He recalled the brief exchange, Pei Youguang's attack had been flashy but predictable. Xue Jing had simply watched the trajectory, dodged, and countered with a single, precise strike. As the dust settled, a golden notification flashed in his peripheral vision. Conditions met, activated skill, fighting. Xue Jing analyzed the sensation in his fists. The system was connecting the dots. Aiming didn't just improve my dynamic vision, he realized, clenching his hand. It also improved the precision of my punches. He looked at the trembling gangster on the ground. The gap between them was massive. Dealing with a martial artist of Pei Youguang's level, Xue Jing concluded, is more than enough. Pei Youguang cowered against the wall, trembling as the red-eyed demon loomed over him. Don't hit me anymore, brother Jing, I beg you. He whimpered, shielding his face. Xue Jing wasn't interested in an apology. He leaned in, his gaze intense. That punch you just used, what move was that? Pei blinked, confused by the question but too scared to lie. It's inner force, not a move. He stammered. Inner force is gathering the energy from all parts of the body, and then expelling it externally through a move. Xue Jing's interest peaked. This was the information he needed to bridge the gap between simple stats and true power. How do you train it? Xue Jing demanded. Who do you learn it from? Pei's face fell. He looked like he wanted to cry. Jing. Brother Jing, I only learned the surface, he admitted, waving his hands helplessly. I can't explain it clearly, spare me. Xue Jing stared at him for a long, silent moment. Then, he reached out and grabbed Pei by the collar, dragging him close. Playing pathetic, are you? Xue Jing scoffed. He began to list the terrifying reputation Pei had built up in the school. I heard you smoke, drink, and perm your hair, Xue Jing recited coldly. Commit arson and murder, and breakdance. Such a ruthless character really submits. Pei Youguang burst into tears, snot running down his face. My dear big brother. Those are all rumors, he wailed. I just used those rumors to establish a persona. If they were true, there's no way I could still stay in school. Smack. Xue Jing didn't buy the sympathy act. He delivered one final, sharp strike to remind Pei of his place. If you don't remember the lesson I gave you this time, Xue Jing threatened, pointing a finger at Pei's terrified face, in the future, I'll beat you every time I see you. Xue Jing turned to leave, but he stopped for one final command. You bullying classmates is a fact, he said. Write a self-criticism when you get back, and recite it 10 times in front of the whole class during morning reading tomorrow. He gestured to the unconscious blonde thug nearby. Have your lackey record a video. I want to check it later. Pei Youguang nodded furiously, scrambling to agree. Yes, I'll listen to everything you say. He pulled up a map location and thrust it towards Xue Jing like an offering to a god. What? Don't hit me anymore, he cried out, terrified. Xue Jing took the phone, glancing at the screen. A location pin for a dojo stared back at him. Xue Jing smirked, looking down at the cowering gangster. He turned and walked away into the night, leaving the school tyrant broken in the alleyway. The transition from the outer ring to the inner ring was stark. The crumbling brick walls were replaced by towering glass skyscrapers that pierced the night sky, their windows glowing with affluence. Xue Jing followed the navigation on his phone. Turn right 120 meters ahead, the digital voice instructed. As he walked, the system suddenly flooded his vision with a cascade of golden notifications, tallying the rewards from the earlier brawl. You experienced a battle, fitness XP plus 109, aiming XP plus 50, you experienced a battle, felt very refreshed, health preservation XP plus 33, fighting XP plus 68. A final window confirmed his earlier realization, conditions met, activated skill, fighting. Xue Jing reviewed his stats panel. He did the math in his head. Usually, working out hard in the gym for an hour only increases fitness by about 200 points, he mused. He looked at his hand, remembering the feeling of the impact. Now, just fighting a not-so-tough fight far exceeds the gains from usual exercise, he realized. And I even awakened a new skill. A dangerous thought crossed his mind. Looks like I'll have to go pick fights often in the future. Finally, he stopped in front of a grand building. A massive golden sign hung above the entrance, Golden Wind Dojo. Destination reached, the phone announced. Xue Jing looked up at the impressive facade. The dojo looks nice, he noted. He pushed open the doors and stepped into the lobby. It was quiet and pristine. Hello, I'm here to visit. Xue Jing began politely. Before he could finish, one of the receptionists quickly raised a finger to her lips, cutting him off with a sharp hush. Shoo, she whispered urgently. Be quiet, the master is teaching a class. Inside the dojo, the atmosphere was heavy with tradition and discipline. At the front of the room, an elderly man with a long white beard sat in meditation, lecturing a group of students. The so-called breathing method is the basic foundation of activating the force through breathing exercises, the master explained, his voice calm but authoritative. Only when the qi within the body is fully circulating can one be considered initiated into martial arts. Xue Jing, standing at the back, felt a rush of excitement. His eyes practically sparkled. Introductory cultivation method, he thought, thrilled. Isn't this exactly what I wanted? He turned to the receptionist standing next to him. Excuse me, can I join in? The woman, who had hushed him earlier, looked at his face and immediately blushed. You can, but don't force yourself, she murmured, struck by his appearance. So handsome, she thought. A familiar golden notification popped up above her head. Charm XP plus 30. Thanks, Xue Jing said, walking over to an empty meditation mat. As he sat down, the elderly man began shouting instructions to the class. Tighten your core, keep inhaling, she commanded. Inhale until you can't inhale anymore, then hold it. Xue Jing crossed his legs and closed his eyes, following the rhythm. The assistant watched him nervously. This kid is likely contacting martial arts for the first time, she thought. Can he do it? She was desperate. She watched the rows of students with bated breath, praying for success. There must be a few usable ones, she worried internally, otherwise I'll be fired by the master. But the results were disastrous. Around Xue Jing, faces began to turn purple. Cheeks puffed out like balloons as the students struggled to hold their breath against the pressure. 38, 37. One thought, shaking. 20, 19. Another counted, their limit reached. Cough. One by one, they exploded. Students gasped for air, coughing violently. Even Cui Jingyuan, the student the dojo had high hopes for, ended up spitting saliva across the floor in defeat. The master's face turned black with rage. Damn it, he fumed, watching the pathetic display. Master, the assistant cried out, terrified. She bowed apologetically. Please give me a few more days, I will definitely help you find a suitable. The master sighed heavily, turning away from the coughing students. Talent, he muttered, clearly disappointed by the lack of potential in the room. Suddenly, the assistant grabbed his arm, her eyes wide. Don't speak, she whispered urgently, pointing to the back of the room. This child is still holding on. Xue Jing sat perfectly still on the meditation mat, his chest rising and falling in a slow, rhythmic cycle. A faint blue aura began to swirl around him, illuminating the dust motes in the air. The breathing method sounded simple in theory, but in practice, it was brutal. It required forcing a massive amount of oxygen into the lungs, so much that ordinary people with insufficient lung capacity couldn't even qualify to attempt it. Inside Xue Jing's body, the sensation was intense. The true qi was constantly expanding, pressing against his insides like it was going to explode. Yet, his expression remained serene. "Time's up," the assistant announced. Xue Jing opened his eyes and let out a long, controlled breath. Phew. As the breath left his lips, a golden notification flashed before his eyes, confirming his success. Activated skill, Inner Force, 69/200. The master rushed over, kneeling beside him with intense interest. "Student, how do you feel?" he asked anxiously. "Is there any discomfort anywhere?" Xue Jing looked down at his hands. Wisps of steam were rising from his palms, and his body felt lighter, charged with energy. "No," he replied honestly. "On the contrary, there's a refreshing feeling." The master's face lit up with pure joy. He grabbed Xue Jing's hand, abandoning all decorum. "Student," he beamed. "What is your name? Do you want to join our Golden Wind Dojo?" Xue Jing blinked, surprised by the sudden enthusiasm. "I." Boom. Before he could answer, the front entrance of the dojo was blasted open with a deafening crash. A dark silhouette stood in the doorway, radiating a menacing red aura. Without a word, the intruder swung a weapon, unleashing a massive wave of crimson energy that tore through the room. The peaceful training session had instantly turned into a battlefield. The intruder wasn't human. The smoke cleared to reveal a nightmare. A massive, insectoid monstrosity with glowing red eyes had pinned a disciple to the ground. Its mandibles clamped shut with a sickening crunch, tearing into the student's chest, blood splattering across the pristine dojo floor. Xue Jing stared, his pupils trembling. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, the reality of the situation sinking in. Chaos erupted. The master, usually so composed, was shouting orders. "Everyone, leave quickly. Do not crowd." He turned to his assistant. "Manager Zhang, please maintain order." "Okay," she cried out, trying to herd the terrified students toward the exit. But the monster wasn't done. Its multiple red eyes locked onto the fleeing crowd. With a high-pitched screech, it unleashed another wave of crimson energy. Slash. The attack tore through the air, heading straight for Manager Zhang. She froze, unable to dodge in time. Whoosh! A blur of motion intercepted the blow. Xue Jing dove forward, wrapping his arm around her waist and twisting his body to shield her. He pulled her out of the path of the energy blade just as it carved a deep gash into the wall behind them. They crashed to the floor, sliding to a halt. Xue Jing hovered over her, his breath ragged but his expression focused. Manager Zhang looked up at him, her face flushing bright red despite the carnage around them. "Student, thank you," she stammered. Internally, her mind went completely off the rails. "I really want to be pinned down by him forever," she screamed silently. A golden notification popped up next to her head, utterly out of place in the bloodbath. Charm plus 20. Xue Jing ignored it. His attention was entirely on the monster raging in the center of the room. His mind flashed back to the interrogation in the alleyway. Pei Youguang said, "Inner force is gathering energy from all parts of the body, and then expelling it externally through a move." Xue Jing's eyes narrowed, analyzing the red energy radiating from the beast. If that theory was true, then this monster wasn't just a wild animal. It's using inner force. Amidst the screams and the chaos of the crumbling dojo, Xue Jing stood up, dusting off his clothes. He didn't look terrified like the others. Instead, a sharp, dangerous glint appeared in his eyes as he stared down the creature. He clenched his right fist. He could feel the newly acquired inner force circulating through his body, raw, untamed, and begging to be used. The monster before him wasn't a nightmare, it was a live training dummy. Inner force versus inner force, he thought. Now is the perfect opportunity to experiment, he declared, ready to test the limits of his system. The screeching beast lunged, a blur of crimson malice, but Xue Jing met it head-on. His fist, wreathed in blinding golden light, cut through the air like a meteor. As the strike connected, Xue Jing felt the immense resistance of the creature's exoskeleton. It was like punching a wall of steel. This thing wouldn't happen to be like a cockroach, he worried internally, grit evident on his face, able to withstand 300 times its body weight, right? If blunt force wouldn't work, he needed penetration. If that is really the case, he calculated rapidly, visualizing the flow of energy inside his arm, I just have to focus my strength into a single point. Inside his muscles, the golden strands of force obeyed his will, converging from a chaotic torrent into a single, devastating needle of power. Crack! The concentrated energy pierced the monster's defenses instantly. The hard shell shattered under the point of impact, spraying green blood and debris across the room. Skill activated, inch force, 80/200. The creature was blasted backward, slamming into the ground with a force that shook the entire dojo. Dust swirled around Xue Jing as he stood amidst the debris, casually dusting off his jacket. "It's much weaker than it looks," he muttered, unimpressed. From the sidelines, Manager Zhang watched with starry eyes, completely forgetting the danger. "So cool." She sighed, clutching her hands to her chest. The old master, however, was struck by a different kind of awe and fear. He watched the young man with wide eyes. This child just mastered chi force, he analyzed, sweating nervously. Yet he suddenly released such a huge amount, his body won't be able to handle the backlash. But the battle wasn't over. Hiss. In the crater, the insectoid creature twitched. Its shattered carapace creaked as it forced itself back up, screeching in rage. Red energy flared around its body once more. "Still want to continue?" Xue Jing asked, raising an eyebrow. He fell back into a fighting stance, his expression calm but deadly. He raised his fist, and the golden lines of his inner force began to glow brightly under his skin again. "The result will be the same no matter how many times you try," he stated coldly. Chi meridians gathering. The energy concentrated in his fist, ready to deliver the final blow. But just as he was about to strike, splat! A massive fountain of blood sprayed into the air. Xue Jing froze, the energy in his hand dissipating as he stared at the gruesome sight. "What's going on?" he thought, genuinely confused. Before he could process the source of the blood, a blur of crimson light tore through the room. The red blur wasn't the only thing moving fast. A streak of brilliant azure light slashed through the chaos, eclipsing everything else. It moved with surgical precision, dissecting the air, and the monster, in a single heartbeat. Shing! The insectoid beast didn't even have time to scream. It fell apart in clean, severed chunks, collapsing into a heap of green gore. Xue Jing blinked, looking at the mess. He thought, momentarily panicking. "Looks like I overdid it this time." But as the dust settled, he realized the energy signature was wrong. That blue slash hadn't come from him. "What is the situation?" he wondered, looking up. Standing amidst the debris was a woman. She had long, flowing silver hair and wore a sleek, tactical bodysuit that hugged her curves. Her hand was raised, fingers glowing with the residual energy of the attack that had just ended the fight. "Void Blade, taking over this area," she announced coolly, her voice cutting through the dojo's silence. "Unrelated personnel, please evacuate immediately." Xue Jing watched her, his analytical mind racing. "White Raven Squad," he mused, noting the insignia. "First time I've heard of them. To be able to defeat that cockroach man in one strike," he thought, genuinely impressed. "Are all the characters in this organization this formidable?" Meanwhile, the silver-haired woman turned her gaze toward him. Outwardly, she remained professional and cold. Inwardly, however, her mind was reeling. "This child looks no more than 17 or 18, she analyzed, scanning the damage to the floor and the monster's shattered carapace. Yet he could injure the cockroach man to this extent with his bare hands, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. "He's so handsome." Her professional demeanor cracked just a tiny bit as a new objective formed in her mind. "I have to find a reason to recruit him," she decided instantly. The mysterious silver-haired woman didn't linger on pleasantries. She stepped forward, her tactical heels clicking on the wooden floor, and handed Xue Jing a small, folded piece of paper. "Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock, she said, her voice low and even. "Come to the address on the note. I will tell you what you want to know." Xue Jing took the note, watching her walk away without another word. He unfolded it. "Qingqing Library 7F. A library?" he thought, tucking the note into his pocket. Outside the dojo, the night air was cool, but Manager Zhang's enthusiasm was burning hot. She fluttered around Xue Jing, her earlier terror completely replaced by infatuation. "Student, are you really okay?" she fussed, checking him for injuries that didn't exist. "I'll take you to my to the hospital for a proper checkup." Xue Jing stepped back, sweat dropping at her slip of the tongue. "It's fine, really fine." He bowed slightly to the staff. "Thank you for letting me visit your dojo today. If there's nothing else, I'll be going now." "Student, you definitely have to come back tomorrow," Manager Zhang called out, hearts practically floating in the air around her. In the background, the old master watched the young man's retreating back with a heavy sigh. "I think that's unlikely," he murmured to himself. He shook his head, recognizing talent when he saw it. For this child to have such strength upon his first contact with chi force. A small dojo like ours probably can't contain him. As Xue Jing walked alone down the illuminated city streets, the adrenaline of the fight faded, replaced by the familiar glow of his system interface. The rewards for real combat were staggering compared to simple exercise. You experienced an intense battle, fitness EXP plus 229. You feel extremely refreshed, health preservation EXP plus 89. Then came the notification he had grown to expect, albeit with a resigned expression. You gained a massive amount of favorability, charm plus 50. Of course, he thought dryly. But the most important notification was at the bottom, confirming his theory during the fight. Fighting EXP plus 98, fighting 166/300, conditions met, activated, inch force. Xue Jing analyzed the new data flowing into his mind. The technique wasn't magic, it was physics applied through qi. Inch force is simply gathering qi into a single point, he realized, clenching his hand as he walked, and accelerating it to the maximum speed within the shortest distance. He had the power. Now, he had the technique. He began gathering qi, the golden light flickering around his fist. But immediately, a wave of strain washed over him. NGH. He quickly dissipated the energy, remembering the terrifying warnings he'd heard about internal injuries. Qi cannot be used like that, the imaginary voice of the old master scolded him. Better stop courting death, Xue Jing decided wisely. I'll take a good rest tonight and see how it goes tomorrow. As he continued his walk, the deeper implications of the night's events settled in. White Raven Squad. Cockroach Man. The city was hiding things. Exactly how many secrets does this world have that I don't know about, he wondered, staring into the shadows of the alleyways. He touched the note in his pocket. I'll just go check out that address when the weekend comes. He arrived at his apartment door and pulled out his phone to check the security feed he had set up. The screen lit up, showing the interior of his room. Xue Jing froze. On the screen, the black cat was sitting upright in his computer chair, its paws tapping away at the keyboard with human-like proficiency. Xue Jing kicked the door open. Hey! He glared at the cat, which was now sitting innocently on the floor, looking up at him. What were you just messing with on my computer? He demanded suspiciously. The cat tilted its head, blinking its large, green eyes with practiced innocence. Meow. The standoff in the bedroom was brief. Xue Jing stared at the cat, and the cat stared back, sweat beads forming on its furry forehead. Xue Jing sighed, the exhaustion of the day finally crashing down on him. The fight with the White Raven Squad and the unauthorized use of inch force had drained him completely. Fine, if you won't say, he muttered, turning towards his bed. I'll settle the score with you after I wake up. He didn't even bother changing. He simply collapsed face first onto the mattress. Silence filled the room. The black cat sat on the floor, watching him with wide, confused eyes. What's wrong with him? It wondered. The cat crept closer, its nose twitching. Sniff. A sharp, metallic scent drifted from the sleeping boy. The smell of blood. The cat's expression shifted instantly. The goofy facade vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp intelligence. Energy began to crackle around its small body. Did he get into a fight with someone? The cat deduced, its eyes glowing with fury. Damn it, it hissed internally. He is my person. Who dares to bully him? Suddenly, the scene shifted. Whether in a dream or a spiritual projection, the cat appeared before Xue Jing's consciousness, standing tall and radiating power. Young man, tell me, what happened? The cat shouted, striking a heroic pose. Don't worry, just tell me, it declared, placing a paw on its chest. No matter what it is, I, Ning Fengna, leader of the dragon sect, will surely seek justice for you. Xue Jing, half asleep and barely lucid, looked at the talking cat with heavy eyelids. He wasn't shocked by the grand title or the promise of vengeance. It really can speak, he mumbled, a small smile appearing. I knew you were human. Forget it, he yawned, his head hitting the pillow again. We'll talk after I sleep. Ning Fengna panicked, shaking his shoulder frantically. Hey! Hang in there, she screamed at the snoozing boy. At least tell me before you sleep. Young man. The morning sun streamed into the apartment, illuminating a spread of fried shrimp, fresh salad, and rice. Xue Jing sat at the table, radiating an aura of absolute vitality. Full health resurrection. Whatever fatigue or strain he had felt from the previous night's battle was completely gone. Across from him, the black cat was demolishing her share of the food, cheeks stuffed like a chipmunk. So, you weren't beaten up by someone, but instead you defeated a monster, she asked between bites, sauce smudged on her face. Xue Jing ate calmly. Yeah. The cat swallowed, her expression turning serious for a moment. I haven't heard of those things running into the city area. she muttered, finding the news disturbing. Xue Jing watched her, his expression softening. Despite her arrogance and strange origins, she had genuinely panicked over his safety the night before. He reached out and gently placed his hand on her head. "Thank you for worrying about me so much, Nar," he said with a warm smile. The cat froze. A deep blush spread across her face, and she stammered, completely flustered by the sudden affection. "Nar," she squeaked. She swatted his hand away, trying to regain her dignity. "You are not allowed to call me Nar. You must address me respectfully as Lord Sect Leader." Xue Jing withdrew his hand, his smile turning mischievous. "Okay, Lord Nar." Before she could protest the nickname again, Xue Jing leaned back in his chair, holding up his phone. The warm atmosphere instantly turned into an interrogation. "Since Lord Nar can speak," he began, his eyes sharp. "Why don't you explain what the you inside the phone was doing?" The cat stiffened. The blood drained from her face, replaced by a waterfall of cold sweat. She froze like a deer in headlights, realizing she had walked right into a trap. Her secret late-night computer session was about to be exposed. "This thing is called a cat tail ring," he read aloud, cross-referencing the image on his screen with the object in his hand. "It is a type of god relic." He looked down at the cat, who was lying there, stiff and clearly uncomfortable. I am looking up information on it," he muttered, fascinated. "So this thing really is a god relic." Xue Jing's mind drifted to the history books. 287 years ago, the god had died in the sky above them. Legend said that the golden specks of light that rained down that day were fragments of divine power, god relics. I had only heard about them before, Xue Jing thought, staring at the intricate patterns on the metal band. But now I've finally seen one. No wonder it can absorb divinity. He was so engrossed in his analysis that he forgot he was holding a living creature. He rubbed the metal thoughtfully, staring intensely at the cat's rear end. The tension snapped. How long are you going to keep pinching?" Ning Fengna shrieked, her face exploding red with embarrassment. Xue Jing flinched, finally releasing her tail. Cough. He cleared his throat, trying to recover from the awkwardness. "So," he asked, pivoting back to the topic at hand, "you were looking up instructions on how to use it?" Ning Fengna lay flat on the floor, looking completely drained of energy. Her ears drooped, and her expression was one of utter defeat. "Not at all." She grumbled into the floorboards. "I want to take it off." Recovering her dignity, Ning Fengna sat up straight, her expression darkening as she recounted her fall from grace. "You know it too. The Dragon Sect is the largest gang in Qingcheng," she began, her voice serious. "Not only do they control the operations of entertainment venues, but they also cooperate with martial arts halls to run some drug businesses." The scene in her mind shifted to the night of her downfall. Shadows danced against the flames of a burning villa. "It was probably because our development momentum was too strong that we attracted envy," she explained bitterly. "I was attacked in my own villa. Someone put this thing on me, and I turned into a cat." By the time she had managed to escape the ambush, her empire was gone. The Dragon Sect had already become someone else's possession, she hissed. "I can only turn back into a human appearance if I take it off." Her claws unsheathed, scratching against the floorboards as a terrifying aura flared around her small body. "And then, kill all those people," she declared, her eyes glowing with murderous intent. Xue Jing watched her outburst calmly. "What do you plan to do next?" he asked. "If you can't find it on the internet, the library is probably a long shot too." Ning Fengna's expression shifted instantly from rage to calculation. She smirked, crossing her paws. "Humph, regarding this point, this sect leader already has a plan," she announced confidently. She pointed a paw dramatically at Xue Jing. "That is to have you practice martial arts and become strong." Xue Jing blinked, completely lost. Is there any connection between these two things?" "Of course there is." Ning Fengna insisted, standing up on her hind legs to lecture him. "After you become strong, various organizations will definitely come knocking at your door," she explained, outlining her strategy. "Maybe among them, there will be god relic holders. Then you can follow the clues to investigate, and you will definitely be able to find a way to remove the cat tail ring." "So," Ning Fengna puffed out her small, furry chest, radiating confidence. "I am going to introduce you to the best dojo." Xue Jing raised an eyebrow. "You mean?" Ning Fengna grinned, her eyes sparkling. "Have you heard of Hidden Dragon Dojo?" Xue Jing's expression went deadpan immediately. "Of course." He turned back to his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he pulled up a familiar web page. "Back when I wanted to practice martial arts, I checked the tuition fees of all the dojos in Qingcheng," he explained, pointing at the screen. And Hidden Dragon Dojo was the most expensive one among them. He scrolled down, revealing a wall of angry red text and 1-star ratings. "But I didn't remember it because it was expensive," he deadpanned, "but because of the massive amount of bad reviews." He read a few out loud, his voice dripping with skepticism. "What kind of dojo is this? The teaching quality doesn't match the tuition at all. Refund the damn money. Every day they just send a few women out to supervise. I suspect this is a scam dojo. Studied for a week, my back aches every day. No one gives any method to relieve it." Ning Fengna scoffed, crossing her paws with disdain. "Humph, these pieces of trash. They can't even endure hardship, why bother learning martial arts?" She looked up at him seriously. In the circle of true martial artists, no one would look down on Hidden Dragon Dojo. Xue Jing sighed, accepting her judgment for now. "So how do I get in?" "By following the rules of the Jianhu," Ning Fengna declared dramatically. "Dojo storming, of course." Xue Jing's eyes lit up. He immediately grabbed his jacket, looking eager for violence. "If I smash up the dojo's venue, will they still accept me?" he asked. Ning Fengna stared at him, unamused. "Look at your unsophisticated appearance." She muttered. "Dojo storming is just an interview." She began to explain the harsh hierarchy of the martial arts world. Dojo disciples are also divided into ranks. A mental image appeared in Xue Jing's mind, a pyramid distinguishing the students. Bottom tier, monetary transaction, those who pay to play. Middle tier, naturally gifted, those with potential. Top tier, dojo storming, those who prove their strength. Those with talent still have to look at their hard power, Ning Fengna lectured. "It's useless if it takes 10 or 8 years to become capable." Xue Jing understood. He didn't have money, and he didn't have years to waste. But he had a system, and he had fists. "I just have to go there and prove I'm better than everyone else." On the path of martial arts, mindset is especially important. Ning Fengna, acting as his tactical advisor, offered one final piece of wisdom. "Dojo storming is a form of self-recommendation," she reminded him, "and also the best means to prove one's spirit." As he headed for the door, the cat hopped onto the windowsill. "Remember to go to the dojo tomorrow," she instructed, looking out at the city. "I'm going to take care of some things." The next day, the morning sun bathed the city in light as Xue Jing arrived at his destination. The Hidden Dragon Dojo stood before him, a traditional wooden structure nestled amongst the modern skyscrapers. A disciple standing at the entrance spotted him and walked over with a welcoming smile. "Student, welcome to Hidden Dragon Dojo." "Hello," Xue Jing replied, reaching out to shake his hand. "I came here too." As their palms touched, the atmosphere shifted. Xue Jing felt a sudden, sharp pressure. The disciple was squeezing his hand hard, veins popping on his arm as he exerted force, all while maintaining that polite customer service smile. Xue Jing blinked in surprise. "Is this a test?" he thought, analyzing the aggression. If it was a test, there was only one correct answer. Since it's a test, Xue Jing decided, his eyes narrowing, "I have to treat it seriously." Gathering true qi. Golden energy surged into Xue Jing's hand, crackling with raw power. He squeezed back. Crunch. The disciple's eyes bulged. The polite smile vanished, replaced by a mask of sheer agony. "All right," Xue Jing said cheerfully, shaking the man's hand vigorously while crushing it with the force of a hydraulic press. "It hurts, let go quickly," the disciple screamed, dancing on his toes in pain. Xue Jing finally released his grip. He turned to the group of other students watching nearby and laughed heartily, trying to play it off. "Ha ha ha, student, don't take offense. This guy is a martial arts fanatic, he wants to spar with everyone he sees," Xue Jing lied smoothly. The other disciples snickered. "I don't know how many times he's lost," one whispered loudly. "Why you guys have big mouths," the greeter snapped back, cradling his throbbing red hand. Xue Jing stood there, a drop of sweat rolling down his temple as he realized his mistake. After all that, he thought, looking at the wailing greeter, it's just a passerby. The handshake incident didn't just break a disciple's hand, it broke the dojo's routine. "Quick, look, the old dojo master and a few direct disciples are coming over," someone shouted from the crowd. Xue Jing released the sobbing greeter and turned to look. A formidable group was approaching, radiating an aura far superior to the gatekeepers he had just dealt with. Leading the pack were the direct disciples, looking like a lineup of mini-bosses from a video game. Li Qi, a towering wall of muscle with his arms crossed. Zhu Shanying, a fierce-looking woman in a qipao. Meng Qingjiao, a sharp-eyed girl with glasses. Chen Fuguang, a green-haired youth with a cocky grin. And in the center, pushed in a wheelchair, was the master, Meng Boss Heng. Resting on his lap was a black cat adorned with a heavy pearl necklace. The lower-ranking students whispered in shock. The direct disciples who haven't stepped out are all here too, one muttered. Did something big happen? Is our dojo going out of business? Why is Wana here too? Another wondered. Quiet. The old master's voice wasn't loud, but it carried an undeniable weight. The whispering ceased instantly. Meng Boss Hang rolled his wheelchair forward, surveying the scene. The floor was littered with groaning disciples, evidence of Xue Jing's interview process. Are you the one here for the dojo storming? The master asked, his voice gravelly. On his lap, the cat named Wanner perked up, its heterochromatic eyes locking onto Xue Jing with a spark of recognition. Xue Jing stared back at the old man. The master let out a dry chuckle. Heh, it's been a long time since anyone dared to come to my place for a dojo storming. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing beneath his dark glasses. The air in the dojo grew heavy with pressure. Young man, Meng Boss Heng asked, his tone dropping an octave, do you think you are qualified? As the pressure in the room mounted, Xue Jing quickly glanced at his system interface, assessing his chances. The glowing text floated before his eyes. Xue Jing frowned internally. The levels related to combat seemed quite low. He worried. He had maxed out his attractiveness and cooking skills, but against a dojo master, those wouldn't help much. Suddenly, Master Meng Bushang's eyes snapped open. A sharp, fiery light beamed from beneath his dark glasses. How about this? The old man rumbled, his aura flaring. I'll ask you a few questions. Xue Jing stiffened. Senior, please ask. What is your name? Xue Jing. How old? 17. The questions came rapid fire, but then they took a strange turn. Where do you live? What work do your parents do? Are you an only child? Do you have any siblings? Xue Jing stood there, sweat forming on his brow, completely bewildered. Why are the questions getting weirder, he thought. Did I come here for a marriage interview? Before he could voice his confusion, Master Meng threw his head back and laughed uproariously. Haha, don't be anxious. For a future son-in-law, naturally, I have to ask a few more questions. The entire dojo went silent. Xue Jing froze. Even the cat. A sharp cough broke the awkward atmosphere. Zhu Shanying, the fierce woman in the qipao, cracking her knuckles ominously, stepped forward, her face flushed with embarrassment and determination. Grandfather, she said, whether he is qualified or not, we still have to fight first. She walked into the center of the room, her eyes locking onto Xue Jing. Little brother, don't worry, she teased, I will go easy on you. Xue Jing shook off the confusion of the marriage proposal and refocused. His eyes sharpened as he raised his fists. Please. The atmosphere in the dojo shifted from confusion to high-stakes tension. As Zhu Shanying stepped into the center of the arena, the surrounding disciples couldn't help but whisper in awe and pity. I think this kid is doomed today. Another disciple whispered, shaking his head. While the humans braced for violence, the black cat, Ning Fengna, sat on the sidelines, her expression a mix of confusion and exasperation. She watched the scene unfold with wide, deadpan eyes. They already said it's a marriage interview, she thought, sweat dropping at the absurdity of the logic. Why are you still competing?
And with that, the story updates once again. If you want the next part, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay happy, peace out.